That first session talked about countries shooting themselves in the foot. I'm here to talk about organizations shooting themselves in the foot. And why is that? And more importantly, for the managers, leaders in the room, what you can do about it. I have spent a career looking at this. I'm an engineer by training. And I worked in the best, most profitable, most admired test equipment company on the planet. And while I was there, this company shot itself in the foot. This company went out of business. I traveled back and forth with a bunch of engineers from where I lived in Medford, Massachusetts, to West Concord, where this company was headquartered. And I would be talking with these engineers, and they could not understand why a firm filled with great engineers that had all the capabilities of getting into this new wave, this new technology, how can this company be going out of business so fast? I thought that engineers could do anything. I thought that the way to build capabilities, the way to build organizations is with fantastic science and engineering. It turns out that that is not the case. And I want to talk to you about my research pretty quickly, and I want to work with John in some detail because we've done this magnificent piece of work on the relationship between Havas, a large incumbent, the sixth largest advertising agency on the planet, headquartered in Paris and in New York, and their attempt to recreate themselves through victors and spoils. And they have just acquired John. They have a board and a leader who wants to recreate this industry, and I'm going to work with John on sort of what happened at Havas. Everybody, I'm going to try to get the group involved in my limited amount of time. What's the story here? Kareem has already set this up. What's the same about IBM, Polaroid? Right down the street is Polaroid. Siebel, Kodak, General Motors. The story here is what are we talking about this morning? Say again? Disruption. This is destruction. Disruption, let me call it destruction. This is a story of firms shooting themselves in the foot. These are the best firms in their industry. They started their industry, fantastic numbers of R&D types. And then something happens. And they are at, I'm going to use some images here, if I can, this morning. These are firms that rocket up based on science. Rocket up, and that's what happens to these firms. They rocket up and they rocket down. And then they drop like a rock at these junctures. And I just want to sort of brainstorm with the group. I want to try to get you involved. Why is it that great firms, when the world shifts, either because of technology, regulatory issues, or political issues, I'd like some just sort of speculations from the group. Why is it that great firms at these junctures almost always end up shooting themselves in the foot? Yeah, but why do they not adapt? They have all the money, they have all the talent. Why don't they adapt? They don't listen to the market? They lose touch with the consumers? Not really? Yeah.
Companies love talking about disruption and change and being revolutionary, but when it comes to it, they're actually still doing exactly the same thing that they used to, but they're just...
The difference between talk and action. This issue with the customers is a really important one. Firms frequently fail because they listen too much to their customers, and they get trapped by the customers. So it's not a customer issue. It's a knowing, doing issue. What else? What other big issue? Yeah, sir.
Culture, lack of entrepreneurial risk-taking.
No. They have plenty of entrepreneurship. They have plenty of capital. These firms have gigantic amounts of entrepreneurs inside, IBM or Polaroid. But somehow, like the Henry and Konas of the world, some of you know Polaroid, they actually invest in entrepreneurship at Polaroid. And Henry and his digital stuff at Polaroid gets destroyed. I want to sort of have us put our fingers on why is it, and it's not entrepreneurship, and it's not money, and it's not customers. It's something about talk and no action. Any other thoughts that come up, and we're going to work with John on this. Arrogance, yeah, arrogance. And where do you see the arrogance? So arrogance, we're going to talk about arrogance, and I'm going to really talk about arrogance with the board and with the senior team. And there's a gigantic difference between talking and action. These firms talk, they don't act. In the absence of acting, they drop like a rock. And then some of them, like IBM, is doing quite well. They rise from the dead. But where I want to go with you is back to General Radio. Why didn't General Radio, when they had all the capabilities, they could have done it and got better and better and better, rather they dropped. And many of you know a bunch of these firms are dead. Some of them have been recreated. And all the work that the people that Bruce and I hang out with at the Academy is around why is that, and more importantly, what can you do about it? And that's why this Havas VNS thing is so great. I want to get up a couple of ideas here, and then I want to go to John and Victors and Spoils. One of the strategic ideas I want to get on the table is different kinds of innovation, everybody. I'm going to ask you to think about incremental technical change, that is better and better ways to do what you're currently doing. I want to talk about a strategic space that is partly technology and partly your customers. Incremental technical change is better ways of doing what you're currently doing. Architectural change is adding and subtracting components to the service or product that you're delivering. I run a program for HBS. An architectural innovation would be I take out a course and I add 2 other courses. And my participants need to hear an integrated program. I'm going to call that form of innovation architectural. And discontinuous is analog digital. It is a completely different way of delivering an automobile, if I'm an automobile company. So there's an axis of technical change from incremental, architectural, and discontinuous. And by the way, everybody, some of these discontinuities are competence enhancing. They build on my capabilities. This will be an important distinction in a few minutes with John. And some of these discontinuities are competence destroying. A competence destroying discontinuity is if I am a chemist doing crop protection in Basel, and someone does through molecular biology for a farm, all my chemistry books are pretty much irrelevant because he's going to be working with a molecular biologist. That's a competence destroying change. And this y-axis is customers, existing and new customers. And I'm going to argue this morning that dynamic capabilities are rooted at the firm level in playing at multiple points in that space at the same time. This is the watch industry, and basically the move from mechanical watches to quartz watches, everybody. This is 10 years of pathology in Switzerland. This is the tire industry. And by the way, the quartz movement is a completely different way of doing oscillation that is way less costly, and as it's less costly, it goes to a different customer. So the swatches many of you have is a completely different product, rooted in quartz technology. If I'm a bias ply tire company, a radial tire company is the same customers, a completely different way of doing tires. And you see every tire firm in the United States shooting themselves in the foot. And by the way, in my prior example, hundreds of firms in Switzerland go bankrupt at the same time. 45,000 people lose their job. This is a customer issue. It's a gigantic managerial issue, I believe, is why they didn't move. And by the way, many of you know, after 1980, after they're bankrupt, Mr. Hayek comes in and gets them into the quartz movement, and they back up to being number one again. Again, I want to make these transformations here, not here. But there's something about organizations that gets in the way of that. And Bruce began that discussion a few minutes ago. The tire industry, this is the disk drive industry. Some of you know Clay's work. This is when you go from an 18-inch disk drive to a 14-inch disk drive. You go to a different customer. This is lock-in from your customers. The basic idea I want to get out right now, then I want to go to Havas. And we'll go to that video. Will be that dynamic capabilities at the firm level and the corporation level is rooted in exploiting what you're currently doing better than anybody on the planet, exploiting your existing business model, that is your existing farms, and exploring into an uncertain future. I'm going to argue that the way incumbent firms live over time and what my general radio firm couldn't do is they got stuck in exploitation. And where I want to go with you is the great firms out there both exploit what they're currently doing, that's where you're making all your money right now, and figure out the future faster than your competitors. The problem is the better you are at exploiting, the worse you are at exploring. These are contradictory forces, and my way out of this trap is to build these inconsistent organizational architectures. I'll get there soon. But there is this challenge of doing several things well at once. And the better you are here, the worse you are here. And by the way, the better you are at exploring, the worse you are at exploiting. That's the juncture that partly John is at. Let me go to the video. I want to set up this. Any thoughts on what I mean by, while we're getting the video set up? Because I want to actually show this with the Havas victors and spoils. There's something about doing well right now that traps you into the past. And as Kareem set it up a few minutes ago, where I want to go with you is building organizations that can simultaneously live and celebrate the past and create the future better than their competitors. And what I've just said is completely inconsistent and paradoxical, and that's where I'm going with you in my chunk of time, is how do you live into this paradox? Yeah, let me take one question. Yes, sir. Yeah.
When you talk about companies that are successful at present and past, but that somehow hinders their ability to explore the future,
Right.
isn't there, I mean, you mentioned a list of companies, all of which are capital intensive. They tend to want to continue leveraging their
Right.
existing assets over and
Right.
over and over and
Right.
over, and that, it would seem, hinders their motivation to
Totally.
explore.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, let me go back to before we go to the video, I want to so yes, but I think it's way more broad than capital intensive. So this is the Harvard Business School dealing with the web. I just want to, can you move me? I think where we are in this, keep going, in this digital issue, let's just sort of clip through here if you could, just keep on moving here. I want to go with this issue of digital and then move into with John. What's happening now, everybody? Let's keep on going. Right. I want to go to a little bit of work that Kareem and I are doing at NASA. This is not digital. This is not capital expense. This is one of our participants, the senior physician. Let me just rephrase things a second. I think prior to 2002, my field, the field that Bruce and I are in, knows the answer to my carpool question back when I was an engineer. I think the world of the web and modularization and computational power increasing and cost decreasing changes the game completely. Let me give you an example of that, and then I want to go to Havas. So Jeff Davis is a senior physician at NASA. He's in charge of keeping astronauts safe in space. Kareem and I are talking to him in one of our executive programs, and Jeff thinks it's cute. Jeff thinks that open source is cute, but it's not for NASA, because NASA has scientists, and we have labs, and this open source stuff is for the rest of the world, but it's not for him. Kareem really pushed him pretty hard and said, hey, like, Jeff, like, relax a little bit. Why don't you just experiment with some of these ideas? These are from Jeff Davis. These are his most technically challenging problems. Life Sciences, NASA, 2009. There they are. My favorite example is sunspot prediction. Take a look. It turns out if you launch an astronaut into space and a sunspot storm occurs, this astronaut is in great risk. They've been trying to predict sunspots for decades. And Jeff has 2 laboratories of heliophysicists doing sunspot prediction. And in 2009, the prediction rate, the hit rate, is like 50-50, as in no progress on this research thing. Now take a look. He posted through an incentive to the community, December 22nd, 2009. He closes the competition March 22nd, a few months later, 600 solutions, everybody, for free. 11 turns out are fantastic, and he sends a check to a retired mechanical engineer in New Hampshire, a gigantic gentleman with a cat on his shoulders. They send him a check, $30,000. Problem solved. This has nothing to do with capital expenditure. This is when you open up your organization to the world, and the world has free time, this surplus that Bruce was talking about. Someone at the periphery, that's what a good portion of Kareem's work, someone at the periphery, not a heliophysicist. A heliophysicist doesn't solve this problem. Someone way at the periphery solves this problem, essentially for free. If you're Jeff Davis and you have solved the problem in a few months, essentially for free, this is what I think about as Jay's work. I think the web is a process revolution. It's doing the same thing. That Jay is doing the same thing in the automobile world, essentially for free. This is Fordism on steroids. It's not that the research is being done differently. Let me say it differently. It's not that the research is different. It's being done differently. This is a revolution for firms. And the issue for Jeff Davis is how does he deal with this? And he doesn't deal with it well. Let me go to Havas. So let's go to Havas. Can we go back to the Havas video? Yeah. I want to set up this discussion with Havas and Victors and Spoils. I have no idea where I am with my time with this group. What's my timing like, everybody? I'm just going to keep on going. Yeah, good luck with 4 minutes. I want to get this video up with David Jones. Let's go to David Jones, CEO of Havas. This is the CEO of Havas, and he is so right. The audio.
And you have a dotted line down the middle, and on the left-hand side, you have brands, as you can imagine, like MySpace, Second Life, Kodak, Polaroid, and depending upon how harsh you want to be, you could probably add in a Nokia and BlackBerry. And then on the right-hand side, you obviously have the brands like Amazon and Google, and Facebook, Apple, obviously, but also brands like IBM. And I think IBM is a very interesting example because what they have managed to do is they're one of the few companies who sit on the right side of that line who dramatically reinvented their business. And they left the PC world and have become a sort of one of the architects of, or the backbones of the digital world. And so very simply, from a Havas perspective, we look at that and say, we need to dramatically change. What we want to be is the best company in the world, connecting brands with people, using creativity, media, and technology.
So this is David Jones, and I'm just going to, when I go, I'd like you to bring me to which side of the revolution. He has support from the board to transform Havas. And he wants to be on the right side of that revolution. He sees the revolution happening, and the way he's going to execute the revolution, one piece of it, is through the acquisition of Victors and Spoils. He has board support. Is that fair to say, John? He has board support from the Bolloré family. He gets it. John is the first crowdsourced agency out there really successful. And he has all the money, and the customers want this. This is a setup, and Kareem and I are simply going to document the beauty of the transformation of Havas. That is the way we got into Havas. We're going to document, by video, the transformation of Havas. Let's go to the next.
With which things come and go, and it changes, and there are new channels, and consumers are chasing new things. The fact that a lot of the people that are leading the businesses are not digital natives, so it's not something they're it's not the way that they've consumed media. The fact that there are new competitors every day, every minute, the scale of the amount of data that people are generating that we need, I think, as an agency to be able to deal with for our clients. It's just all new, and it's all moving really fast, and people are scared.
And our industry is sadly, we are changing slower than our clients, and also changing slower than the consumers who are supposed to talk to. So we need to really, really change fast. It's not something nice to do, it's something we have to do.
Can you pause that? Pause that for 1 second. Right now, I want you to pay careful attention to Mercedes Erez. Mercedes is one of the most powerful creative types in Havas. Any predictions about where she would be on John Winsor and Victors and Spoils? She's behind, you know, the Evian commercial series advertised. She's behind the Evian series. This is a brilliant, creative person. Any predictions from the group as to where she would be when she's introduced to John Winsor and crowdsourced innovation? You're the chief creative person.
She's conservative.
She's conservative.
Because she's very comfortable in her space.
She is brilliant. She's at the top of her game. She's like the scientist at NASA. Pay careful attention. Speaking in French, pay careful attention to how she labels Victors and Spoils. Let's go to the video.
Important, elle a impacté en bien et en mal, comme toutes les choses de la vie, très fortement, et parfois elle a déstabilisé et elle a inquiété, ce qui veut dire qu'on a encore du chemin à faire pour trouver la bonne route. Nos clients en particulier ont pensé que c'était très important, mais ils ne savaient pas très bien pourquoi ni comment. Et nous, à l'agence, on s'excitait parfois un peu, sans savoir exactement si nous n'étions pas des apprentis sorciers. Parce que les autres médias ont aussi et continuent à avoir un rôle. Donc notre intelligence, c'est de comprendre qu'est-ce qu'a apporté réellement le digital.
What did you see with Mercedes? I want to get to... what did you see, hear, feel from Mercedes Erez? Readiness to meet a challenge. Self-criticism? She was self-critical of herself? Again, I realize I'm pushing pretty hard here, everybody. But this is a woman who knows what she's doing, who's proud of what she's doing, and the word she uses to describe what John represents, did you get that? Sorcerer's apprentice. What does that mean when she uses the word, John is a sorcerer? What does that mean? John, what does that mean? You're a sorcerer's apprentice. He's the devil. Dangerous magical thinking. We do not yet know what the big deal here is of crowdsourcing, and we're really good at what we're doing. And the language she's using is, this is a devil. And by the way, I should have mentioned it. There's a gigantic organization John is here, the leader of Victors and Spoils. He's also asked by David to be the Chief Innovation Officer of Havas. This devil, sorcerer, is being brought in to be the Chief Innovation Officer of Havas. Everybody, do you see a nightmare playing out here? This is going to be a very dark story for the integration of Victors and Spoils. Some of the senior leaders have labeled him a sorcerer. He has taken the position of Chief Innovation Officer. This cannot possibly work.
This technology has commoditized her
Totally.
her expertise
Totally.
and made her less special.
Makes her less special. Commoditization. The masses are doing the work. It's not Mercedes, it's the masses. Let me go to one other thing, and we'll get John to talk about what perhaps could have been done differently. Could you go to Chris? This Chris right here. This is the COO of Havas.
We are a very entrepreneurial company, and we're frequently saying that the last thing we wish to be is WPP, because WPP is a very, is to us a very financially constrained company in which they don't encourage brilliant creative talent to flourish. So people feel that they're working for a large, financially well-run organization, but the creative stars tend to feel, I want to go and run my own agency, I want to go and have the excitement of my own responsibility, where I'm not constantly having financial people telling me what to do. So I think the success of Havas, and the reason I've been 30 years with it, is that we're quite good at ensuring that the individual advertising agencies and the creative people who are key in those advertising agencies feel as if they're running their own agency, responsible for that, entrepreneurially can build their business, but they're part of a network which provides the ability to run clients globally, which provides tools, resources, strategic planning, and other global resources that you wouldn't get if you were a single agency working within a single market.
What's his point of view on this digital revolution? And later on, by the way, he talks about John, and he says what John does is sort of like 100 monkeys. Every once in a while, the crowd will do something that is creative, but it's sort of like 100 monkeys. What's his point of view on crowdsourced generation of content? What's his point of view on revolution? Because where I want to go with you, everybody, is firms renew themselves through revolutions. And John represents the future. And I just want you to, when you look at this video of most of the leaders of Havas, they are talking about highly decentralized, we do our thing the old-fashioned way, we have these creatives, and John is the devil and 100 monkeys. And he's going to get clobbered by the organization, and eventually, the end of this case, it's so graphic, is David Jones leaves the organization. And this digital revolution is actually not. I'd like to ask John, yeah, come on up, John, let's do this together. I'm going to code this as an organization, back to this gentleman's point, they know what to do, they have all the talent, they have all the technology, they have all the capabilities. If Bruce was here, Bruce, this is not a capability story. This is a story of change. And the messenger is getting shot. Is that, let's sort of talk about that, John. How come? How come? What could you have done differently, and what was your role in getting shot?
Well, I think I thought that I could make change. I think I assumed that David was really up for it, and he had the support of the bureaucracy. You know, in retrospect, I think that David's real desire, probably subconsciously, was he wanted to do more, create more change in the organization, but yet he couldn't be both positive and negative. So he put me in a role that allowed him to be more spacious, to allow him to be better. We talked about that, and I was fine with that. I have no problem being provocative and pushing the envelope. I think what both David and I underestimated was in the end, the bureaucracy got rid of him.
Let me push a little bit. So partly the bureaucracy, and partly, let me just stick with Mercedes. And where was the creative crowd? And the creative crowd in an advertising agent, they have all the power. They are behind the magic of Havas, and it truly is magic. Where were they on this?
No, they hate the idea that whatever somebody said earlier, it takes away their specialness, right? Their reason for being is to win awards and a lot of times creatives and agencies really wish they would be fine artists, but they couldn't make it, so now they're commercial artists. And there's this deep self-loathing that they couldn't make it on their own art. So they resent the fact that somebody outside the system can do what they do.
Is there anything, and I'm getting the 1 minute thing, is there anything that either you or David could have done to increase the probability that this crowdsourced revolution would have taken hold at Havas?
Yeah, I think that I probably shouldn't have been Chief Innovation Officer, that they should have made a smaller investment. I mean, since David left, things have worked out great. I have no, even though I'm Chief Innovation Officer, I have no day-to-day involvement in that role. Since then, we've gone from bumping along and growing a little bit to this year we'll grow 270%. We've created 1 billion impressions for our clients, which is probably 10 times more than any other agency in the network, although we're tiny. And we've won more creative awards.
Is there any way to have gotten the creatives, the old-fashioned creatives, to have coded you as not the devil? Because partly the issue, everybody, is the coding of John.
Yeah.
And where I want to go is, can he be coded as a complement, not as a substitute?
Yeah. Yeah, I think what's interesting is that the word, I've written a few books, and when Jeff Howe and I were talking originally, the word crowdsourcing meant one thing. It morphed into something else and something much darker. Every agency uses a lot of freelancers, so they really crowdsource things. But it's a lot of it is the terms that are used. I also think that when we started at Victors and Spoils, we were determined to be a disintermediator. Mm-hmm. And the reason we did that was we thought we'd win business. The day we started, New York Times ran an article about us, 700 people joined our crowd, and Dish Network, the television satellite company, gave us their TV campaigns. So it was a very successful first week in business. In retrospect, to really make change, I think there should have been, I should have had more of a perspective, kind of re-intermediation. The idea that how do we build technology like we do to support the current paradigm, to make not a revolution that attacks them, but more of an evolution? How do we help build the bridge to the future for them? I feel like it's a generational thing that a lot of people still, my age, wouldn't have come across the bridge, but a lot of younger folks wouldn't have followed their own leaders and started using it. That's happening for sure, and that's where it's going to go.
Right.
But I don't hold out much hope for firms like Havas to make it there.
Great.